Welcome to the Angels, Magic and Joy podcast. This podcast is for those who seek answers from above, guidance and magical inspiration.
Immerse yourself in the realms of magic, angels, fairies, unicorns, dragons, and so much more. I'm Kirsty Jandrell, and I'm delighted to be here with you today.
And I am Kate Lachman. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of our The Angels, Magic and Joy podcast. And today we're very happy and excited as we have a very special guest, Nikki Incandela. We're so happy you're joining us today, Nikki.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to meet you and always amazing to see Kirsty since we've known each other for a little while now.
I'm so happy and thrilled, and I'm really looking forward to hear about your story and what you're all about. And for starters, for all of those who might not be familiar with you, Nikki, would you like to share what you do, what you're all about, what you're passionate about, what stands behind you?
Sure. So I do brand vision, strategy, and photography for my clients. So it started out, I'd gone to fashion school originally. I designed clothing in New York City for over 10 years, which really allows me the experience and the expertise to help style my clients with their signature everyday style. And then went into photography. I actually started out as a portrait photographer, and I noticed very quickly my gifts really lied in capturing the true essence of my clients. So I would have I would do family photo shoots and photograph babies and kids. And I loved that. And I honestly thought I was going to be photographing babies and kids for the rest of my life and really, showcasing who they truly were to their parents. And this was just this energy that kept happening and unfolding. And I loved it. And then I became really good friends with a business mentor of mine in order to grow my business. And I had done this photo shoot for her. And I did this whole elaborate thing, and I rented this really amazing studio and did this whole long day photo shoot. And she was like, "What was that?" And I was like, "Oh, it's for you." And she was like, "No, you were teaching me how to make money off of my photos while you were photographing me." And I was like, "Well, I was just sharing with you all the branding and marketing, that I've learned that I do for my business." And she was like, "You're a brand photographer." And I was like, "I don't even know what that was." And so it just really it's led me instead of me leading it this whole career. Um, After leaving fashion and thinking, okay, I'm giving up all my travel, I'm giving up all these luxuries, going to Paris twice a year, like all these things, right? And meanwhile, this photography career and this brand coaching career was just pulling me forward and pulling those fashion aspects out of me. And the travel that I've gotten to do has been even more expansive with this type of career. And the people that I've gotten to photograph really has been incredible. I've spoken on stages around the world and photographed the Dalai Lama, like royalty, the Prince of Monaco. I've photographed companies as small as business startups, so people who don't have clients at all yet, all the way to Johnson and Johnson, which is funny. That was my first Fortune 500 company that I worked with, and my maiden name is Johnson. So I thought that was really cool. But it's shocking when I go into work with Johnson and Johnson, and I'm like, okay, so what's the strategy? And they're like, no, we're going to do everything that you said. And I was like in shock. I'm like, wait, me? Like what I said? So, so it's been fascinating and it's been beautiful. And I do brand vision and brand strategy even without the photos, like I've done with Kirsty. I work with a lot of people overseas who don't even live in the same country. I work with a lot of people who fly in to work with me from other countries or across the US. Um, or I help people hire their own photographers based off the brand strategy that we create. And so that's a little bit about me.
Oh, thank you, Nikki. That's beautiful. Lots of little nuggets I wasn't aware of in there. So thank you for sharing all of that. And yeah, it's you've got such a, I would say you've got such I don't want to use the word toolbox because that sounds too nuts and bolts, but you've got such a beautiful tapestry of skills to offer. And you've touched upon, of course, the photography and the branding, and as you mentioned, I've been so fortunate to have worked with you, and you've helped me get my messaging really aligned, and really helped me a lot in my creative process and in becoming, um, visible in a really comfortable way. And um, we were talking just before we kind of got on screen about how intuitive you are, and how that intuition and that intuitive connection between you and your clients helps them to kind of really bring out their essence in a way that feels both comfortable and fun. And yeah, so that sort of connection between your intuitive knowing and that part that plays in the creative process, can you maybe explain, and I know it's really hard probably to put into words, but can you explain how this sort of intuitive gift features in
Yeah.
whatever you do in your work, please?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, so it's interesting how, and I know that you girls know this too, and you've probably experienced this where it's like one thing leads into another, right? So I noticed in my design career, my fashion design career, that I really excelled in targeting a very specific client for each of the companies that I worked for. And I got very clear on the fact that I was part of my brilliant space is getting myself out of the way in order to really allow something fresh and something targeted to be aligned. And so I always was really good at designing clothing for the specific customer and client base that I worked for. And it's interesting because I do the same thing in photography. And I really, get myself out of the way. It's not about me, it's about me supporting my client and being of service. And so this is something that I don't even need to think about, right? It's just innately in me. So these pieces that are just innately a part of our beingness is a huge part of the intuitive responses and gut feelings and flow and alignment that we get to witness and create in our lives. And so on top of that, so I'm not necessarily religious, although I grew up in the church, but I am a believer. And like I said, my photography career, when I started it, it was just leading me, and all of these magical things were popping up and being created, and I was just kind of following. Like I had a free website gifted to me, like all of these things. I was just like, oh my gosh, what is happening? So I remember I came home from work one day as I was like transitioning, and I was married at the time, and I shared this with my husband at the time, and there was this quote that was told to me just randomly, and it said, "God doesn't call the qualified; He qualifies the called." And I thought that is exactly what's happening to me because I took 1 year of photography. Like, I didn't grow up with a camera in my hand. I wasn't one of those people. I just was extremely naturally talented at composition and color and capturing the true essence. And I thought, who am I, right? Who am I to be going and photographing people? And I remember my first client, I charged him $150. He was a dentist and he was going to speak at spas. And I spent like an hour and a half with him, and I thought, I am ripping this guy off. Like, I just charged him $150. Now it's like people pay $5,000 to work with me. So it's just like such a huge gap between, sometimes we forget where we start and where we're at now. But so, I took that quote and it meant so much to me, and I just let that guide me. And I've done a few specific things with every client when I go into shoot, and I literally just ask for God's guidance and allow that intuition to come through me. And it's crazy the things that I have witnessed of myself. I know, so there was this one guy, just to give you an idea of like an example. There was this, I was speaking at this event and photographing it, and I had this booth in the hallway, and there was another event happening down the hallway. Well, this guy stopped by one day who was going to the other event, and he was like, "Can I hire you to photograph me on stage tomorrow?" And I was like, "Well, I no, like I'm working here, like I'm at this event, I'm speaking." And I said, "Well, what time?" And it was actually in the morning, like 7 a.m. before I had to be at my event. So I was like, "Okay, cool." I had no idea who this guy was, showed up in the room, and I just did the same thing I always do. Okay, God, guide me. Tell me where I need to be to get the best photos to be of service to this man. And I remember at one point I was guided to go to the side of the stage in the front. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm like in the wrong spot. He was doing something on stage that led me to believe I was in the wrong spot. And I kind of started freaking out and like wanting to backtrack and go back down the aisle to get photos. And next thing I knew, he took his jacket off, he stepped off the stage and sat in the audience, and, like, there's no way I would have gotten that photo if I wasn't right where I was, and so I just like, I've always followed the guidance because it's those kinds of things that always unfold for me, and I go in with a plan, but I go in with, like, a free flow so that, I'm allowing the guidance in that space to really create even better things that I could create on my own.
Well, that's absolutely amazing, Nikki. And I love that you have so much faith in you and you do the most important thing that even, healers that they practice for so many years, they don't do, they just ask and they're just, having that faith and that, trust in the process and whatever comes, you have that openness. It's absolutely beautiful to watch and to see. And it's amazing, amazing story. And and I suppose you have loads of stories like that. And I
Yeah.
wonder, because you've mentioned, okay, starting here and then going further as a photographer, and then what led you to your current path, that's who you are right now, where you are. You've already shared a bit of those stories, but would you share more and expand a bit more, about your path, like what led you to be where you are now? Because I find it always like if we share those exact events and stories, like it's so, I find it personally so inspiring.
Yeah.
So what would you say, what led you to where you are right now?
Part of it, I would say, is just calling it in, right? You can call it manifesting, prayer, whatever you want to call it. We all set intentions and sometimes we just call things in. So part of it, I would say, is calling things in that I wanted to be and experience. And then the other part is, I'm still being led to where I need to be. Like, I'm not done yet. And I'm so aware of that, I'm still on my journey. And even as I'm transitioning kind of out of the photography piece over the next year, I'm transitioning even more. So into like really becoming who I'm meant to be, but everything has helped me along the way. There's been no mistakes, right? So part of it is one of my first mentors she taught this model of building your list. And so I started along with the rest of my mastermind group. And she very quickly decided, she was like, "You are an amazing speaker. I want you to get on stages immediately." And I was like, okay, I didn't know anything about it. I thought I didn't know anything about it. I realized when I look back, I had been speaking. So in fashion, I was I was presenting my line to the entire company 4 times a year for each season. So it didn't even dawn on me. I was like, "I've never spoke before." And I was like, "Wait, I've been doing this for a long time." So that really helped. I was like, and I'd never even like put 2 and 2 together, right? So she was like, "Go get on stages." So as you're speaking and doing trainings and diving into that world, you start to better articulate your process and how you can help people and what they need to know, right? Because everyone is like, "You're a photographer. What do you speak about?" Like, well, the importance of your visual brand, your images, and how that's actually money sitting on your desktop. And but people can't conceptualize that because they think of it just as a picture of themselves. And I had to get them to flip that and change the perspective to see their images as a marketing tool. So in doing that and creating all these talks and speaking on stages, I really had to get better at articulating what my process is and how I help my clients. And as I did that, it unfolded more and more and more. And I gained even more experience and had even more to share with my clients to a point where at one point I was just on a sales call and I didn't even have a package that didn't include photography at the time. And that's what this woman needed. And I just made it up. And I literally was like writing bullet points of what I was promising her based on what I could provide. I wasn't making anything up. I was making up a package to deliver and promise on something that she needed that I knew I could fulfill for her without the photos. And she was like, "I'm in." And I was like, "You are?" She was like, "Yes." And so that was my first VIP coaching package without any photography. And it just kind of unfolded from there. It's like, do I love doing this? Who do I love helping in this area? It's really just like taking your brand and keep like tweaking it and refining it, because there are parts of our brand that are foundational, right? Like they're never gonna go away. Like my sophisticated taste level is never gonna change. Like that's something that's foundational to me, right? So there are things that are foundational for all of us within our brand that will never change, but the rest we get to tweak along the way. Like maybe it's a new client base, maybe it's a client base that can afford more because you want to charge more. There are different aspects that can tweak in your brand, but in that progression of really speaking more, doing more trainings, getting myself out there, networking, I really had to articulate better how I help my clients. And that helped me create the whole like coaching basis that I do now, even without the photography piece. And it just unfolded organically too. I realized, like, as I was refining my process, okay, what information do I need from this client that can really serve them more, that can be more efficient, right? Like, I used to take my intake questions and I would ask them on a Zoom call. And then I realized, okay, I'm asking the same questions all the time. How can I make this more efficient for myself and my client? And so now I send that form. So I created a form. I send that ahead of time now. So you just live and learn, right? You're refining your process always. You're figuring out always how you can be of more and more service and support to people. And you're always growing, right? It's like we never have a cap to the information and value that we can give as long as we're growing ourselves.
Yeah, there's so much in there, Nikki. Thank you. It's beautiful to hear you articulating that process as well. And yeah, I'm just really curious about sort of thinking. And I love the fact that Kate and I all have this phrase that we use a lot. We say we follow the angelic breadcrumbs, which is exactly what you described. And
Yeah.
creating these lovely bespoke packages and that deep listening and listening to your intuition. And I'm just wondering whether you I think at this point in time, there are a lot of people who are realizing, oh, actually, I'm not leading the life that I particularly want to live.
Yeah.
And they're feeling that they don't want to kind of sit in the box that they've almost put themselves in, yet they may not be quite sure about, where they want to go, what their calling is, what their path
Yeah.
is. And I'm just wondering whether you've got any sort of insight really about for someone who's sort of lacking in direction, how can they rely on this intuitive angelic breadcrumb following process that we all know works. Have you got any tips for how people can start to do that and start to rely on that intuition? Because for some people it's kind of a big leap, right, to go from
Yeah.
one lifestyle work style to another. I
Yeah.
hope that makes sense, that question.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just thinking because it's a beautiful question and I can answer it in two ways. Um, the first way I can answer it is from my own journey, right? So, because I've been in that situation a few times. So, um, so typically, I would sit and um, ask the questions, like ask God the questions, ask the universe, your angels, whoever you get guidance from, ask the questions and sit in meditation and really listen and take notes and see like where those breadcrumbs show up, right? Because it's all about awareness. Like we're always getting answers to our questions. It's just, are we really receiving them? Are we open to them? So once you ask questions, especially important questions, just being aware of like who shows up, what shows up, where you're being guided. Oh, I took a wrong turn that ended up being a right turn, that kind of stuff. Um, and so typically I set some guidelines for myself. Number one is this a higher calling, right? Because we know what we're comfortable with. We know what's doable for us, which may not always necessarily be the higher calling of what we're being like pulled into and called into. So that's one thing to be aware of as you're looking through your list of notes of what's downloading for you. What are the highest calling? I had a lot of ideas download to me, and I was like, I love all of this. And I can do all of it, but like, how do I narrow down? And when I really started asking the more specific questions, um, like for me, I had heard a preacher. out of UK talk about the God ideas. There are good ideas and God ideas. So he was talking about the qualifications, and so I took myself through those qualifications, and I very clearly got my answer of like, what on that list was the God idea? And typically it involves more than you. You can't just build it on your own because everything is a community. We are meant to live supporting and serving each other. So that was one of the qualifications, which this is. It's a big idea that I don't know how to do on my own. So that's number one. Um, it's a higher calling. So it's not something in your comfort zone. It scares me in an excited way. I have no idea how I'm gonna accomplish this, so there's that. What's the third one? There's a third one, I'll think of it. But, so I run myself through, like, those questions, and I narrow it down and get my answer. And, is it, like and then just build it out, start jotting down your ideas. Like, I have, like, huge downloading sessions where I'm just like, "Oh my gosh," it's, like, all, like, channeling through, right? Like, here it is. This I couldn't even make this up. I know I'm channeling right now. Um, so there's that aspect. So from the second aspect is how I help my clients. So I have an intake form that I send my clients that really takes them kind of into their head and into their heart. And I really dive very deeply into their personal and professional interests, values, and lives, and really get out of them what it is that they love out of both aspects, personal and professional. Um, what comes easy to them, what their brilliant space really is. So we actually narrow down all of those questions. So this is how I help my clients, and similarly, I take myself through it, but this process is a little bit more difficult for me to take myself through. It's more the downloads and the intuition and just sitting with God for me. And so for my clients, I take them through a very detailed and deep questionnaire, and it's like then we get on a Zoom call and we dive even deeper, and I ask even more questions, and everything starts to really crystallize and become very, very clear. And like with Kirsty, where it was like, I want you to do a quiz. Yeah, I want to do a quiz too. And I was like, but I want it to be very different. Like, I want it to be so different. Like I've never seen a fairy quiz. And I literally the day before had like, I don't even know if I had a dream or what it was, where fairies came in, and I knew it was for Kirsty. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, I love fairies." And it was like, there we go, ding, ding, ding. And so I see like that magic unfold all the time when I'm working with my clients. It is a little harder when I'm on my own, trying to assess my own, goals and aspirations, and how do I want to change my entire life right now? Like, it's a big task. So bit by bit is like the biggest thing to focus on. And really becoming clear and recognizing where your brilliant space is. And that's kind of a big folder. So like in that folder is like all the sheets of paper. So it's like um what comes intuitively innately to you, right? So there are things that I've noticed I am very much included in this, and I always have to check myself and ask myself, am I striving for something that innately comes already packaged in me, right? Like for a long time I was like, I just want to be generous and kind and loving. And then I went to go see someone speak. I was actually photographing them, and they were talking about this, and they were like, "What are you striving for? In what areas of your life are you already demonstrating that?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't even have to think about being kind and loving and generous. Like that is just innately in me. I don't need to strive to be that anymore. I can just trust that that's going to come out of me." So, you can do an exercise with your friends, people you trust, your loved ones, and really get clear on what innately you bring to the table that you don't even have to think about. And those are characteristics that are really going to drive wherever you go, right? It's like, um, I've built a very successful business, and made a lot of money as a photographer, probably a lot more than most portrait photographers. And I don't consider myself an amazing business owner. I just don't. But what I do know about myself is I am a huge visionary. I am an amazing creative director. I have like epic skills of like seeing the wonderful things in people and like bringing that to the surface, whether I'm photographing them or speaking to them. So, like, those are things I'm clear about, you know? So really getting clear on what you innately bring and who you really are already is going to help you stop striving to be something that you're already like aspects that you already contain. And that goes with skill sets too. You know, there are certain things that just like come naturally to us. And and just recognizing that, writing it down so you don't forget, because we forget. We all go through times when we're like, am I worthy? Right? And it's like, oh yeah, I am. And here's why. So having those reminders is always really powerful because we're always going to go through seasons where we second guess ourselves.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that you mentioned that at the end. I suppose um, one of the psychotherapists that we have at the place where I'm at, she says that some of, because they're all like business owners, they're all like, having their businesses, and some of them, we had like a circle for all of us. And she mentioned, oh, am I actually doing it? Like, what am I doing? Like, should I be doing, like, those concerns? And is that ever end? That, are you ever at the position, at the moment in your life that you never doubt yourself? And she said, I suppose never, but you kind of become more comfortable in your, um, more secure in your insecurities, she said. And I love
Yes.
that, how she put that, that it's not like, it never happens anymore, that now you're at that level, that you're just thriving, and it's just, straight roads, down the hill. It's just, you kind of more know how to navigate. And I love that you mentioned that we all experience that. Absolutely love that. I would like to come back to one thing, because I actually, before we've met today, I've met my friend, and she's doing her business as well, and was that big topic about authenticity. And she mentioned that as well, and we had that whole conversation about,
Mm.
we had that whole
Dishes.
yeah. So we had that whole conversation with my friend before we've met today, about authenticity. And she said, it's so much easier for me when I meet someone, face to face, so we can just chat and she knows me. And then since then I started to wonder, why is the message sometimes not clear? Why is what we show, either on our website or in our branding, not exactly who we actually are? So here's like this big question to you, Nikki, and please give it all to us. Any tips or any guidance to us? How can we be authentic in the message that we give? Like, I love how you share so openly about what you do, and I would kind of struggle with that as well, because that's another thing. Okay, another question to you. I'm gonna just throw it all at you, and you just give it all to us, Nikki, please.
Okay.
The other thing is, like, this selling thing. Like, we're kind of expecting other people to just get us, just to understand us, and just, you want the product or not, rather than you're explaining it so lovely, and you're communicating what you're all about all the time. And I absolutely love that
Yeah.
about you. Just, and it seems so natural to you, and it seems so like you're very comfortable with that as well. And like, talking to other friends that they have their businesses, I find it very often that's another thing that we will kind of be uncomfortable in. I don't want to sell to anything to anyone. So
Yeah.
okay, Nikki, so give us all of the tips. Bring it all.
Okay. You might have to remind me of the first question, but let me answer the second question that you just asked first. Um, well, Kirsty and I had a whole sales training. So sales comes easier to me, and it comes easier to every single person. I am not special. Um, who recognizes that sales is serving, and um, and not to take it personally and not to get attached to an answer. So I am personally responsible to help people, to serve them, to support them, to get them to step into what they describe to me that they want. And if I can help them get there, it is my responsibility to share the value of what it is to work with me, right? So a lot of people, like you had mentioned, think like, well, why isn't anyone just buying my product, you know? And you you have to share more. Like, if people aren't seeing the value of what you have to offer, that's not on them. And that's a huge misconception and mistake that a lot of people make about sales, is the confusion that your potential clients and customers are experiencing is your fault. And and so it's like, let me explain it like this, is how you can kind of transition if you're noticing that you're losing someone. Um, Obviously, there are points ahead of that, like being aware, reading the person you're speaking to, right? So you even know where to go next. But when I learned sales, I had already had a pretty successful photography business, and then I learned sales, and I learned like a line of questioning, and I thought, how did I ever know how to help people before this? Like, that was my response. And in that minute, I was like, "Oh, sales is serving. Got it." because I'm not attached to if you say yes or no. I'm attached to the value that I'm being called to bring to you, you know? And depending on what your style is, needs to go off of your own personality type, right? I have a very like honest, loving, upfront, I'm going to be totally like honest with you type of personality type. So it comes very natural for me to say bold things when I'm on a sales call. Like I've literally said to people before, I'm not hanging up until you say yes or no, because you're being indecisive and that's not serving you. So I'm going to get a yes or no from you and I'm going to make a stand for you because you're not making one for yourself right now. And if you get anything out of this call, it is that you know how to be more decisive for yourself. And they're like, okay, you're right. I just was in fear. Here's my credit card. But like not everyone has the personality to really approach conversations like that. So knowing your own personality and not being something that you're not is the the top thing I could probably say and give you when it comes to being successful at sales, because people know when you're asking something inauthentic or saying something inauthentic. And trust me, like a sales conversation isn't going to flow out of your mouth the first time you say it, but if you find a way to ask the questions, right? Like I love sales so much that I actually get mad if someone isn't selling to me who should be. I'm like, I want to buy this product. Why are you not coming after me right now? Like, why are you not making a stand for me? Right. This is my favorite example to use is let's say there's something wrong with your car and you take it to the mechanic and the mechanic hates sales and he feels really insecure when he sells, but your brakes are going out. Are you going to be happy that he's insecure about selling you brakes? Like, this is what we're doing. I'll share this with you since you guys are into like intuitive magic and all of these wonderful things. I only one time I got off of a sales call and I cried when she didn't buy from me. And it was because this woman was saving people's lives. Like she would have by the droves women coming up to her in parking lots and saying, I was gonna kill myself and decided not to because of your talk. And she was afraid to step into her power. And I was like, "Oh my god, like, I know I'm serving people, I'm helping them, but I'm just photographing them." Like, how like, this woman is literally saving lives, and she's not willing to step in. And I just, like I hung up the phone, and I cried, and I had my minute, and then I let it go. Because I was like, this is her journey, and I just, like, wish her well, you know? Um, but it's true, it's like we are the cure for what people are looking for, and when you look at sales through that lens and you have a conversation that is like, "Ask these questions so that you can get the best knowledge and information and wisdom from this person who is on the other line with you," and then you decide, "Are they a right fit? Can I actually serve them? Can I actually fulfill on a promise of based off of what they're needing?" And it is a selfish disservice at that point if you do not offer them to work with you. Um, and when you start looking at sales as service, it will change your world. And you'll be like, okay, no, okay, no, okay, yes, okay. You know, because the part that you're attached to is giving the value, giving the information, giving the offer. You know, if you think about like someone who's changed your life that you've worked with, and then all of a sudden it's like there's nothing left. And it's like, but what's next? Like, like when I was working with Kirsty, I was like, how's your sales conversation? And she's like, "Oh, well, I don't really have one, and we do pretty good in the other business." And I was like, "I'm happy to upgrade and give you a sales training if you would like." But like for me to not have offered that to her would have been a huge disservice to her. And it didn't matter if she said yes or no. And she said yes, and we got to play together more. But like it's the non-attachment to the answer, but the attachment to, am I putting everything on the table with this person right now? Like, I don't want to hang up and be like, but I could have said, like, I don't want to experience that, you know? It's like how you do anything. You leave a relationship. You don't want to wonder, could I have done more for that person in that scenario, for myself in that? You just like sales is the same way. And the best salespeople in the world aren't always people. They're your animals and your kids because they are relentless with what they want and need. And like my dog is so finicky and he like if he wants to go outside, like he will not give up. Like that is his sales pitch. And I've gone into like train sales with my clients' teams before too. And they're like, Nikki, I don't really want to do sales. I don't feel good about it. And here's why. And I was like, I'm going to stop you right there because what you're giving me is a sales pitch. And they're like, what? I'm like, you're selling me on not wanting to learn sales. Like we are in sales thousands of moments throughout every day. And we don't even realize it because sales is just a conversation and it's just listening. Like, what can I provide for this person? Oh, I have value. Oh, you need a pen? Here's a pen. That's a mini example of a sales conversation. It's just providing value and having taking responsibility for and accountability for showing up and serving and supporting and actually following through and leaving everything on the table with that individual. Is that helpful? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And thank you, Nikki. That's there's so much in there, and it's so true. And it's like I, I think for a lot of people who are, healers and coaches in the spiritual business, it can be almost, you can be almost at odds with the concept of sales because it can be seen as something that, isn't desired by the person you're selling to. And then ego gets in the way and you're like, well, I shouldn't really be, and when you actually get out of your way and you get your ego out of the way, as you say, and kind of realize that you're providing a service and you're giving them the option to use that service or not, then it becomes so easy. And it's so interesting working with you because my my recruitment business, I've been in sales for 20 years, but I wasn't selling myself, and that was so
Right.
much easier. Stepping into this spiritual work, this souls work, is very much, you're selling yourself, you're selling
Yeah.
your essence, and that can be very difficult for people. So I just love
Yeah.
that idea of that shift, that mind shift to, yeah, I'm providing a service to you if you,
Yeah.
and that just, yeah, blew it
And
out of
your
the park for me.
certainty like builds. What's that?
I said that blew it out of the park for me because that
Ah,
changed it. That was so thank you, such a different perspective.
yeah. And your certainty builds as you grow in your business. I tell my clients, I'm like, let's do these packages, charge this much. And they're like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, charge what you're comfortable saying at first. Like, charge something that's a little outside of your comfort zone. And you will very quickly learn your value and learn that you are undercharging. And then you can set your pricing at a reasonable rate. But it's hard to charge something that is like way over what you're comfortable because you don't have that certainty yet. And I've had people that I've met, and I'm like, what do you do?" "I do brand photography and strategy," and I don't know how price comes up, I can't remember, but like, "Oh, yeah, it's like $5,000 to spend the day with me," and they're like, "Wow, you must be amazing," and I'm like, "Yeah, I have to be at that price, don't you think?" But, like, I'm so certain that, like, I have clients who are like, "You should be charging 10,000." Like, I don't know, like and so it's like I know that the value is there. I know what the ROI is. I know how committed I am to being of service and supporting my clients in this light. So your certainty has everything to do with sales also. And that builds as you get used to asking people for money for what you do. And at some point you're just like, yeah, I'm done with the free stuff. Or maybe like you have like a small free thing and that's super fun for you, right? Like what I did with Kirsty, like the 20-minute social media audit. Like I love doing those. And it allows people to get to know my personality. It allows me to get to know their business and their personality and see if it's a good fit. And I don't always give an offer to everyone that I do those to. It's like sometimes it's just not a good fit for me. And it's not going to be fun for me to work with them. And it's not worth it for me to have clients that aren't going to be aligned and fun for me to work with. So I apologize. I can't remember the first question you asked. Kate.
The first one, but I think you've touched that a few times,
Okay.
but maybe you can dive in more about this authenticity behind the brand. Maybe you could expand on that. I feel like you've touched that a few times, but maybe you can expand even more, like the tips behind that. We had that conversation today, and why is it that sometimes, it's that I have this funny story that one of my first mentors, because I started more with art first, so I wanted my website to be like a blank canvas, but then I went more into, discovering myself that I'm actually more into magic and, the angelic realms and everything. So I kind of rebranded myself, but the website was still kind of all like a white canvas. And I said, who would take a look at the website? uh, if maybe you could give me some tips. To my brand mentor was so funny because I was very happy because I got like a nice gig with one of the corporations to do like a workshop for them with meditation and everything, but it was a corporation which is a completely different client base that I would normally have. And she just looks through that website, she just says nothing. She's like, we always laugh at that, it's like she just looks through the website, she's like about to say it, and I feel she's like about to say something, when you get that feeling like it's about to come out, okay, the truth is about to come out. She's like looking, she's like, you know I have to say something. No wonder this corporate client called you. No wonder. It's like, this is not completely not your vibe. Like, this is not you. Like, I don't see any magic. Like, what's this about? So, so any
Yeah.
tips, Nikki, on authenticity? How can we be, visible as our true selves in there?
Yeah, yeah, it's all about authenticity, right? And the reasons why is because that sets us apart. That really exposes and allows us to expose the uniqueness that we hold. So, whereas like another photographer may not capture true essence, but I know that that is my one of my just natural gifts. So if someone wants their essence to be captured, I'm probably one of the people that they should be talking to. So it really allows us to expose our brilliant space, our uniqueness, what we have to offer, so that we can really clarify for our potential clients where we stand with our competition. So, and if you know your competition, you know who you share clients with, you can help the potential client while you're on the phone with them in that sales conversation choose too. Well, I know this person does, corporate headshots. They pretty much have like a blank canvas type of look to their images, and it's beautiful and it looks great and it serves this purpose, but like my images are more like filled with light and essence and like style and personality. So it all depends on what you're looking for. And, just be generous and like help people decide while they're on the phone with you, right? So just knowing what your gifts are, knowing what your personality is. One of the things I take my clients through is their brand pillars. Um, so if you list out an entire list of like all of your all of your interests, values, activities, things you love. Just list everything out. Just do like a brain dump. And you should have probably like 4 or 5 brand pillars that you work off of. And one of them should be your business. It's a given. um, and then the others are just things that you can talk about all day long. You geek out on. You just absolutely love, like with no interruption. You can talk for like a week straight about, right? And that all comes easy to you. Those are the easiest ways to incorporate those things, the top 4 or 5 things into your brand, so that that creates your messaging, your copy, things that you share, and then you can always loop it back to your business or how you help your clients or something in that realm. Um, one of my brand pillars is my dog. So he's 13. And so for 13 years, people have seen him grow and be raised by me. And I have clients who are like, if I come work with you, can I meet Cooper? Like I would have like clients like, hey, I'm in the area. Can I come see Cooper? Can I come meet Cooper? Like, and so they create these relatability pieces for other people to like really get to know our heart space as well as our brilliant space, right? And so I just did a speaking engagement in Cabo, and I was talking about this subject about how my clients ask if they can get a photo with Cooper. And it's so funny because one of my clients was the host of the event. So when she came back on, it was a virtual event. When she came back on, she pulled up her photo of her and Cooper. She was like, "Look, this is my photo with Cooper. He really is famous." And it was so cute. Very funny. But so yeah, so those pieces can be replaceable as you grow, right? Like, I hate to say it, but Cooper isn't always going to be around. So, when that brand pillar starts to like not be relevant anymore, there's going to be a new brand pillar that replaces that. I know a lot of people who have replaced um like a love that they have with a brand pillar of like starting a family, and like that becomes one of their new brand pillars. But it allows people to get to know you and to really allow yourself to be vulnerable without having to like just open your heart up. And like people think vulnerability is like gut wrenching, like tearing your heart open and letting everyone see what's inside. And it's not. It's like could be as simple as sharing something you love, you know, and just being honest about that and being open about it. And so the brand pillars can really help you create like who you are, what your values are, what your interests are, and help you be more authentic in how you approach your brand and what you build off of. One of the other things that we did with Kirsty that I do with a lot of my clients is I have them submit to me, like their top tier um, favorite websites. What websites do you love? What look of photos do you love sometimes if I know photography is going to be a piece of it. And then what I do with that is I take all of those pieces and I review them, and I there's always a foundational piece. So it looks like you're really drawn to warm colors. So, maybe your website should be based off of warm colors or the chakra colors, or there's always a foundational like synergy with all their top tier favorites. And so it's like knowing what you're drawn towards that you can create also for yourself as far as a look of all of your brand elements. Your brand elements are your logo, your website, like all of the elements that create your brand and get your brand out there. Besides your identity and your personality and your messaging is obviously part of your brand identity, but your brand elements are those pieces like, the Starbucks logo. We think that that's their brand, but that's just a brand element. And when we see that logo, it actually reminds us of an experience that we have with that brand. So a lot of people think the logo, the website is the brand, but those are just brand elements. So really making your brand elements cohesive with like what you love, what you're drawn to, and figuring out the synergy between like those top tier things that you love, like your Instagram layout, which I don't know has like so much relevance anymore because people don't typically go to your Instagram feed necessarily. I mean, sometimes they do. So it is important that you love how it looks, and that it stands out for you. But finding those pieces of like, oh, these are the 5 feeds that I love. And typically there's synergy between them. Oh, in every single one of these, every other post is a quote. So let me incorporate that. That's something that I'm really loving. So that's a way to really kind of get in tune with what you're loving, those pieces that you are drawn to that you can create. And then all of a sudden you have a brand that you love. And if you love your brand, you're going to attract people to you that also love your brand. And they're probably going to have shared values and interests too. Is that helpful?
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that particular exercise actually, Nikki, that choosing, because I'm currently having my website updated, and that process with you of going through and choosing which websites. That was so informative. And you were
Yeah.
like, yeah, and it's got this in it and this. And I was like, oh my God, I never knew. I never knew.
Yeah.
And that's been so helpful now at this stage where I'm looking to, as you say, bring in those pillars, but also the essence of what you're drawn to, because that is a part of you. So
Yeah.
okay, I love the fact that you your website was attracting corporate clients as well.
Yeah. That's so funny.
Oh, thank you, Nikki. Yeah, there's so much in there. And also you mentioned the questionnaire earlier, as well, that you give to clients, which I also went through, and that was so useful in that process of self-reflection, before you even start to work. It helps you to hone, what you want
Yeah.
as a client, so you're able to best serve, your client as well. So it's, yeah, the whole process is
Yeah.
fabulous.
Well, I remember when I first started my photography business and I was photographing babies and kids and families. And obviously, with my fashion career, I had been to Europe a lot. And I wanted my website to have a very sophisticated European flair. And so I used colors that were mostly used in chocolates and desserts. So my colors were pink and brown and white. And it's not a color combo that people here in the States are used to seeing, but I wanted this like elegance to flow from their experience of the website. And so people would call me and say, I saw your website, and based on that, I don't know if I can afford you, but I thought I just had to call you anyway. And so you set this tone of what people can expect from you based off of your your brand, and your brand experience is like what dictates where the colors are, what the elements look like, all of that. So that way you're actually attracting clients who get on the phone with you and they already understand like this is going to be a high level photographer. I Let me just check. And then I end up being like lower than what they expected because they really had like priced me out in their head, but they were still calling, which is the point. It's like you don't want people to like not call, but to have enough approachability. So yeah, it's crazy what you see unfold when you take what you want people to experience from you and your brand and you put that injected into your brand elements and it's just like, whoa, okay, it's pretty clear. Good.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. That really is. And yeah, and I'm just thinking of your website now, Kate, as well as Nikki's talking. It's because Kate's an artist as well as many other things, and it's so you now, and it's so your essence through the colors, and yeah, and so yeah, so true. Nikki, we have now a question that we love to ask to all of our guests.
Yeah.
And I know you have, because I know you've shared some of these with me already, but for the benefit of Kate and our audience, please, can you share with us a magical or angelic experience that's been pivotal in your life, please? Or well, it doesn't have to be pivotal, but something that's been really, transformative for you, exciting. Of
Yeah.
course.
I mean, so many. I guess I'll say so early in my photography career, I had photographed a client's daughter and had just posted the images and went to like go run errands or something. And and then I came back to back when we all had like landlines. I came back to my um voicemail, my what were those called? The machine, the voicemail machines.
Yeah, answer machine message. Yeah,
Thank you.
that's it. Kate's like, I don't know what that.
I
Yeah,
can't believe I couldn't remember the name of it.
I
I'm like
struggle.
Gen Z. So anyway, come back to my answering machine. With all these messages, she's like crying. She's like, "Oh my gosh, you so beautifully captured the essence of my daughter. Like I've never seen images like this." And and that was very pivotal for me to really like kind of become and really step into the brilliant space of recognizing how I photograph soul essence. And I took that with me I to today. Um, so that's been a magical, like pivotal moment for me. Oh my gosh, so many. I'm just trying to think. I'm like blank. I shared the one about being in the right place, shooting that event. Um, Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they happen daily, and I'm just always in awe of, like, the magic and the miracles unfolding around us, you know?
And that's pretty, yeah, I was getting chills as you were talking, because that is a real validation, isn't it? From,
Yeah,
wherever you believe, whether it's the angels of God, or that you're on the right path, and how beautiful for that. Yeah.
yeah. I've definitely experienced, like, angels, like, in human form for sure. Ones that I physically got to meet and others that I just, were somehow beneficial and helpful for me. I was doing a photo or a video. So I hired a videographer to shoot a video for my photography business like years and years ago when I was still doing family photos. And I had one of my favorite families lined up. I lived in New York then, and we were all going out to Long Island to do a beach photo shoot, and the videographer lived out there. So I was taking a train. I didn't exactly know what stop. I was a little like unclear, and then it was like rush hour, and so the train was like absolutely packed, and I had to like put one of my bags up on top, and like it was just jam packed. And I'm texting, and I'm confused, and it ended up that there's a north line and a south line. I had gotten on the wrong one, and so I'm texting this videographer, and my clients at the same time because everyone's meeting me, right? It's just this like perfect storm. Um, and um, and so I was like, "Oh my gosh, I need to get off the train." And like right before like the doors shut, and so I got out and he had to drive to the other like I can't remember if I was north or south. He had to drive like to the one that I was at. So I was on the wrong line. So he's driving, my clients are driving toward the beach, like, we're all trying to, like, meet, and, I had to wait for him to get there, so I, like, was wasting time, I was doing just reading and, like, I think I went to get a coffee and, like, just, doing stuff, and, he gets there, and I hugged him, and I go to get into the car, and I lost my shit, and he like, sobbing, like, I couldn't even talk, and he was like, "What just happened?" Like, I literally just hugged him and then sobbing as I'm getting in the car, like, I couldn't breathe, I couldn't talk, and finally, like, after sitting there for a few minutes of just sobbing, um, I said, "I left my camera on the train." And he was like, "What?" And I was like, "I've been sitting here this whole time getting a coffee, like, wasting time, like, waiting for you, and I had no idea my camera the entire time was on the train still." And I'm like, "Oh my god, my clients are meeting me. This is like, it's like $7,000 worth of equipment, right?" So I'm like, if not more actually. So all of a sudden, my phone rang and I looked at it and I was like, "This is my camera." And he was like, "How do you even know that?" And I was like, "I just know." And I answered it. And this woman was like, "I think I have your camera." And I was like he was like, "No way that just happened. No way I just witnessed that happening." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, I'll come to you. Where do you live? Like, I can't even believe this. I can't even believe you're calling me." I had my business card in the bag, thank God, and they looked through the bag to see whose it was. And, so all of a sudden, we have to go this whole other route. She lived, like, at the end of the island, like, the opposite way of the city, like, all the way. I'm calling my clients, I'm crying, and they're like, "Nikki, we'll go wherever you want. We'll just meet you there. We're gonna be there. Like, we're all rallying together. It's okay." And, like, I'm sobbing, right? And this is a video I'm about to cut, like, my makeup is just destroyed, like, I am, like, red eyes, like, snot-filled, and I'm just like, "How can I even do this video now? Like, look at me." And, like, everyone's just rallying behind me, and I was just like, "Oh my god," like, the love and the rallying and the magic that I was, like, experiencing was, like it was too much for my brain and my heart to even hold, and so I get to the house and I'm like, "You're an angel. Like, you know this, right? Like, you're literally my camera angel." And I probably still have her number in my phone as camera angel. And, I was just like, I can't even believe what, like, just unfolded." And so now we're at the tip of Long Island, nowhere near where we were supposed to be. My clients show up, they're like, "We're ready." Meanwhile, they have, like, a toddler in tow, right? Like, it's not just, like, 2 adults, it's like a family. They and I was just like, "Okay, let me just, like, pull myself together here because like, I've been sobbing and snotting all over myself." And I couldn't even remember originally what I was supposed to say. Created this whole video. I ended up cutting part of it on my own because I just didn't even sound coherent after all of that. Like, I did not even, like I just looked like hell. I was like so I cut part of it, and he was able to, actually, like, splice it together. But that was a good example of, like, noticing witnessing the magic and miracles and angels and rallying of, like, people who are just gonna, like, back you and follow you no matter what and believe in you, and I was just like, "What?" I did not feel worthy, and but it was happening, and I had to just sit and receive, and it was too much almost for me to, like, even energetically receive, it was too much. But I didn't have a choice, and I just sat in it, and I just allowed, and it was just insane. I haven't told that story in so long.
Oh my God, Nikki, I absolutely love that story. I feel like I'm gonna be quoting it in the future. It's absolutely, oh my gosh, it's amazing. And I wonder, looking at it from the perspective, like I would like to put it a bit more. What was the lesson behind it? Like, what did you get from it behind? Like, at the end of the day, like, what was that on your path? Why? What impact was it from that story for you? Because I always find it always when those like hardcore things happening. Because I have some of the similar. Like, I have one story that was really, really extreme as well. Like, completely hopeless. Like, what did you get out from it? Like, at the end of like looking at it back now.
I think, my God, it was such a long time ago. Number one, just the belief and the confidence and trust that people around me have in me based off of how I just show up, right? So it was a beautiful mirrored effect of like this this is what you get when you show up how you're showing up. Like people like this that will rally for you and believe in you and follow you to the ends of the island. And like just be there with you and just we're just like driving committed. And so I think that for sure was huge for me to really like embed into my consciousness. Um, and then I think, I've had so many examples of increasing my trust and my faith. And I just had this conversation with my client's daughter who was in Cabo with me because she was like, I believe in a higher power, but like, why do you believe in God? Like, where does God come in for you? Like, I want to know this. And I was like, I just simply put, like, every time I pray, miracles happen. That's just it. Like, I'm as skeptical as the next person, which people don't actually know about me because they think I'm just like happy and open to the woo. But like, I test everything out. and and I get answers and I get proof and I get miracles that unfold. And, you know, when it is a scenario that feels like too much, it's like, this is too good to be true. I don't deny that it's the higher power, which I think a lot of people do. They will be like, well, what are the chances? Like, I mean, just got lucky. Like, a lot of people think I'm just lucky. And I don't really care if they think that or not. I don't care what they think of me. They can call it luck, but I know that I am always being provided for, and that trust and that faith, I feel like I'm just always getting examples of that. Like, literally, even last week on my travel, something crazy happened with my flight, and I was going from one client to another, so I had one day, and I had to be there next day, and I was going from Mexico to Dallas, and, when I checked in for my flight, it was supposed to leave at 10 a.m., and it ended up I checked in, and it said it was leaving at 11 a.m., and I was like, "That's weird." Like, United sucks at giving updates, so I thought, "Okay, my flight changed, and they didn't send an update. Okay, it leaves at 11 now." So I get to the airport the next day, and I had double checked everything. I get to the airport the next day, and the kiosk said it was too soon to my flight for me to check in, and I was like, "Oh, no." And so I go to the desk frantic, and she's like, "No, your flight is leaving in 15 minutes at 10 a.m." And I was like, "W what flight did I check in for?" Like, I got a confirmation, it asked me to pay for a bag, like, what flight? Did I confirm then? Do you have me on any other flight as far as checked in? And she was like, "No." And she was kinda like she didn't really believe me, which I get, but I was so shocked that I was like, out of like 30 years of traveling at least, right? Because 'Cause I'm 50. Out of 30 years of traveling, like, that has never happened, ever. And I thought, "Okay, as long as I can get there today." And I was getting in at 9:30 at night, so we're talking, like, the last flight, and I was shooting an event the next day, like, I had to be there. It wasn't just me counting on myself, like, I had hundreds of people counting on me to be there, and so I was like, "Okay, how do I stay calm in this moment, and just trust?" So I feel like I have, like, had so many scenarios like this that, like, the craziest things are unfolding, none of it makes sense at all, and I feel like I'm just being tested to see how I respond. And I had this moment, I got off my first flight in Houston, I was connecting, and I was running down to global entry because you have to, when you come into the country, you have to grab your bag and you have to, right, go through customs and stuff. And so I was running because I had to make my connection. And I got to this level where there were like 4 escalators going down, and there was this really old Mexican woman at the top of one of the escalators. No one else was around. And she looked back, and like the frightened, concerned look on her face, I was like, "Oh my god, she's terrified of the escalator." So I went up to her and I grabbed her hand and I smiled at her and I said, "Are you ready?" And she was like, "Okay." We took a step together and I held her hand the whole way down the escalator. Um, and what came to me in that moment, and I know it just was divinely gifted because I wasn't thinking about it, right? What came to me in that moment was my whole day was probably shifted to help this one woman. Like, it was that moment that I was meant to be there. Like, God knows that I would never just zoom past someone, right? Like, he put me there because he knew I would help. I don't know who this woman was, but he loves her so much that he put me there to help her. And like, this is what is going through my brain as I'm like holding her hand going down the escalator. And I was like, okay, whatever you need to do. I know you're going to make it fine. I know I'm going to get there tonight. I know my bag's going to get there because there was a whole thing around my bag too. And I thought, "E everything's gonna be fine. I'm gonna just stay calm and trust." And so much so that I'm sitting in Dallas and, like, the first bag came around the carousel, and I didn't even think it was mine. It was my bag. The first one out, because I thought, "It will be a miracle if I get my bag because of what happened." And the first one out, and I didn't even trust it. Like, it came around the second time, and I was like, "There's that first bag again." And I was like, "I bet you that's my bag." And I pulled it off the carousel. It was my bag. I was like, "Oh my god, not only are you so amazing that you, like, got me here tonight, you got my bag here," but it was the first bag to come out. Like, it was like, there was gonna be no waiting. You're gonna know immediately that I've got your back, and I have so many stories and instances like that. So, there's just, like, for me, there's no denying. I don't know, just magical.
Oh, thank you, Nikki. That's so beautiful, isn't it? That fact that you were, yeah, and to not just to get there, but for your bag to be the first. That's the best bit, isn't
Yeah,
it? Oh, gorgeous.
yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah.
Oh gosh, I felt like we were talking just 10, 15 minutes, and I just checked the clock. I feel like we're talking, I think, even more than 1 hour, Nikki. I could listen to you all
Yes.
day. I'm absolutely loving it. But I feel like we need to be coming to the end. Thank you so much for sharing all your stories. I feel like there's so much trust, hope, faith, and I feel like you're weaving this. I don't want to use big words, but I feel like you're weaving, because it's very often detached, the spirituality from the earth codes, from the abundance, the everything that we need. And I feel like you're the manifestation of both, that it's possible, that that it can be, with flow, with ease, with grace, rather than, once there is that trust and faith. And I'm looking forward to learning so much more from you. So thank you so much for
Oh,
sharing.
thank you so much. Oh
Thank
my
you,
gosh, this
thank
has been
you.
so fun. I just adore you ladies, and I'm just so honored to be here and have this time with you.
Thank you so much, Nikki. To finish up, would you like to share with us? Of course, we're going to put it in our show notes as well. But how can people get in touch with you? How can we get more of you?
Yes, yes. So you can email me, Nikki Incandela at gmail.com. I'm having issues with my website email, so I want to make sure that you use my Gmail until I figure that out. Um, or you can go to nikkiincandela.com, which that will be in the notes how to spell it properly. And I do have a free gift there, but I can also give you guys, if you want, I just created for another crowd that I got to speak to, my 3 best brand downloads. So I can share that link with you guys if your listeners would like that. It's a really cool gift.
Thank you. Thank you, Nikki. That's so generous of you. You are such a generous hearted spirit. And I know that that's just been, conveyed so beautifully today. So great to have you back to chat and to always be in your presence. And yeah, thank you so much for all the beautiful transmissions that you've brought to us and our audience today. It's been amazing.
Thank you.
And
Thank
thank you
you
so
so
much.
much. And I'm already looking forward to discover more about you, Nikki. Thank you so much. And thank you,
Ah,
Kirsty, as
it's
well,
so
for
good to
making
meet
that
you,
happen.
Kate, and
Thank
it's
you, thank you,
always
thank
so
you.
good to see you, Kirsty.
Oh, absolutely. A joy. Thank you, my love. Oh, well, thank you, Kate, as well. And thank you to all our listeners. And yeah, we will see you in the next episode. Have a beautiful day. Have a beautiful evening whenever you're listening, whenever you're watching. Oh, so much love. Take care. Bye.